Hi, today we have contemporary author Katy Hart. I'm so excited, Katy, to meet you and to have you here and to have people hear your story. So I'm going to just let you take off. You tell us a little bit about yourself and let's get started.
Okay, well, my name is Katy Hart. I write contemporary Christian romance with a Southern twist. I lean into my Southernness, as you can probably tell from about 3 seconds of talking to me. That's okay. The Lord made me to say everything with at least two syllables. If the word's worth saying, you need to stretch that word out. So anyway, I started out and I was a nurse for 28 years, and I was a hospice nurse toward the end of that. And that was a ministry to me where I witnessed to people, I sang to people, I helped them meet their needs. We talked about the Lord, and I just really felt like I was doing what the Lord had called me to do. And then I had some health issues and got to where I just couldn't handle doing that anymore. And so I retired in 2019, and I teach Sunday school. I play in our church band. I do all kinds of stuff at the church. But I really felt that I needed something that was geared to me personally. And, you can only scrub toilets for so long before your house is as clean as it's going to get, and you need something to do. And so my daughters and my husband were like, well, why don't you write that book you've been talking about writing? And so I went into writing, doing that. And I talked to my husband about it. And, the things I wanted to do was whatever I wrote, I wanted to have a Christian worldview. And my little thing that I said, my tagline with my cozies were, you can leave it on your table, and if your mama or the preacher comes in, you don't have to hide this book. It's okay. So that's how I started out, and I started writing these cozies, and I published the first one in June of 2019, and I had by the next year I had 7 and finished out. That's an 8-book series. But I had it's the Katy Cross Cozy Mystery Series, and it's set in the southern town of Skeeterville, Mississippi. Wow. Which is about And so anyway, I got to writing those, and I really felt that my writing needed to do more than just have a Christian worldview. The main character, she knew who she was. She was strong in her faith, and she witnessed a lot, but I really felt the Lord was leading me to do something else. In 1 year, I had killed off 18 people, and I just, really was tired of that.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I thought Cozy Mysteries had like no death.
Oh, they have death, but they have no gore. Like she would stumble on the body, nothing on the page, no gore, no sex, no bad language. Think of a cross between Murder, She Wrote and Andy Taylor, and you have Katy Cross. That's it.
Okay.
So that's the best way to describe it. So anyway, then a friend of mine who writes historical romance asked if I would write a historical Christian romance. So I did, and they got cholera, and I killed more people in that book than I'd ever killed before. So that wasn't for me either. So anyway, I really prayed about it, and my goal was to write something where I could evangelize and witness to people through the spiritual growth of the story and the characters without just, actually like going to church in the book and sitting through a sermon, but they would experience it. And I found that Christian contemporary romance is a very good fit for me. Now with every book, I really pray about and look for the theme of the book and what these characters are going to learn and experience with each book. And that's where they grow and they reach that. And that's how I feel like the Lord is leading me. And, I never dreamed that my imagination and my love to daydream could be a ministry tool. But the Lord is bigger than us, and He made us special, for different things. And so I think I have truly found what the Lord wants me to do with this. And it is, I don't know what people see when they see authors. I think they see people that drive around in fancy cars and do all of this, but no, it ain't nothing like that, girl. You rub 2 pennies together and write a book, and that's what I'm doing, and I'm so happy to be able to do it.
So I want to just jump in here because I looked on your website, and there are quite a few cozy books. How long are your word length, maybe your cozy mysteries? Are they like novellas?
No, the cozies are probably average around 80,000. The Christmas cozies are a little bit shorter, but they're around 70 to 90,000, I would say, for those.
Okay. So there are how many Katy Cross cozies are there?
8.
And now you have your other contemporary. How many are there?
With a contemporary, I have the beginning one, which was A Christmas Blaze, and that's what threw me into the Carson's Bayou series. I have 4 that's on Amazon. I have 1 that's a free giveaway when you join my newsletter, and number 5 will be out next month.
So tell me, how do you write that much? I mean,
I do 2,000 words a day, 10,000 a week is my goal. I'm very goal oriented, Jennifer. I love a good goal. I do 2,000 a day.
Well, I do about that too, but I haven't got that many books going. Do you? I mean, goodness sake, I mean, the daily goal, but you're talking about 2,000 words a day. How many? What are you doing? 5 days a week?
I do 2,000 a day with the goal of 10,000 a week. Sometimes I hit 12, but if I haven't reached the 10,000 by Friday, sometimes I'll write on Saturday, but usually I have reached it by, by Friday. I get up early. I keep my grandkids. I keep my 18-month-old Pinky, and then we go and pick up the CEO at 3:00 from school. And I have them in the evening, but I get up early and write in the morning and do right before they get here. And it takes me anywhere from an hour and a half to maybe 2 hours to write about 2,000 words.
You are kidding me. It takes me all day to write 2,000 words. You must be fast.
I write almost as fast as I talk.
Don't you you never stumble over plot structure? And I mean, you have the whole structure figured out in your mind before you start, or are you a pantser?
I was a pantser at first, but I got Katy in a situation she couldn't get out of. I'm thinking about book 3, and I had to back everything out and rewrite it. I was like, oh no, my criminal's too smart. She can't figure this one out. So I started plotting out. I don't write like a terribly structured plot,
right,
but when I sit down to write a chapter, I have a goal in mind to reach by the time I reach the end of that word count. And that's my goal. And I drive the whole chapter toward that goal. Sometimes it takes 2 chapters to reach it, obviously, because my characters get out of control and take over. Yeah. But I know but I know what points I have to hit. And this is how I do it. When I go to bed at night, after I say my prayers, I think about what I'm going to write the next day. And then the next morning, it just kind of flows out of me. It really don't take that long. I love to ask people about this. When I write, it's like I'm taking dictation from watching a movie because I see it. It's just there in my hand.
That's how I write too. I see it, but I struggle over. Anyway, it doesn't matter what I struggle over. I'm blown away. I'm blown away because we get up early, do a Bible study, do a little workout. By the time I sit down, it's 8:00 in the morning. And basically, I try to finish my writing by lunchtime so that I can do marketing and all this stuff in the afternoon. But I don't have grandkids to watch and everything else. So I'm just impressed. I can't believe it. I want to channel you. That's crazy, dude. That is crazy.
Well, I don't know. It works for me. That's all I can. It might not work next week, but it works this week. So
well, good for you. So so you have your Katy Cross series, and those are the cozy mysteries. I love that. Skeeterville, Mississippi. Is that a real place?
No, girl. I thought I was being so ingenuitive when I come up with the name of Skeeterville. And I had that, and I put it out there, and I had it on there, and it wasn't 3 days later, and somebody texted me and said, there's a Skeeterville, Texas. And I was like, no, I did not. But no, there's no Skeeterville, Mississippi, and there's no Carson's Bayou, Louisiana. It's all out of my head.
That's kind of nice though, because then you can, when it's in your head, you're not having to stick to specifics, making sure everything, because somebody's going to find, if you have it in a real place and you make a mistake, somebody's going to be sure and tell you.
Yeah. Well, and I thought about it with the cozy mysteries. And the reason I made it a fictional place is because if I made it a real place and the pharmacist ended up being the person that murdered the other person, well, I didn't want that pharmacist in that town to be going, were you thinking I killed somebody one day? You know, so that's one of the reasons.
That's how rumors get started.
Yeah. You know, it's bad enough when you live in a small town and you write your first book and everybody's like, well, I know who you were thinking about when you wrote that person. I'm like, no, I wasn't. I really wasn't.
So that's another thing that interests me, where you come up with your character ideas. Like, people have asked me this too, and mine don't come. I don't pair it after anybody. I don't have somebody in mind. It just happens. Is that how it works for you?
Oh yeah, definitely. Anything can give me an idea and I can just go with it. You know, it's so funny. This is how my mind works. And this is where I was with Cozy Mysteries. You know, we can be driving down the road and there can be a big, oh, beautiful thing of flowers between, like a flower bed between the roads out there with real tall sunflowers or flowers or something. And the first thing that pops in my head is, oh, you could hide a body there and they'd never find it, you know, and there goes the
Well, you have to be careful the conversations you have in church. You know, that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But yeah, they and my church people have been really supportive. They've read my books. They're just wonderful. Like I said, they're all, you know, most of my people, you know, Katy is in her 50s and she struggles with her cholesterol and she loves too much pie and she thinks her grandkids hung the moon. And most of my feedback I get back about that is about how they love Katy and not so much the mystery as much as they love Katy. She's a home health nurse and oh my gosh, is she ever nosy? But you know, she gets the job done.
How fun. Well, that I can see why that would really take off because you have that one anchor of that character throughout the stories, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not coming up with brand new main characters all the time. That would be very helpful. So
Right.
and then what about your new series, the Carson Bayou? Where does all that come? See, I'm trying to make sure I say it right. I said it wrong. I say it right that time. Bayou, not Bayou, Bayou. I'm trying to become Southern. So those of you that know, I'm actually from Northern California, born and raised, and was a transplant here almost 6 years ago. And my church people are saying, we're going to make a Southerner out of you yet, you know, because I'm writing Southern fiction and they're reading it. And they come back and they love it. They're like, where did you get these metaphors and this stuff? And it's like, I've never even heard of that one before, but it fits, you know. So the church people are now looking to help me with my story.
Well, you probably have to do the opposite of me. Like when I'm editing, I have to go back and make sure I don't have too many y'alls in there and you know, hush and all that stuff and take that out. You probably have to sprinkle a little in.
I have to, you know, I do, and I have to do it in a way because some of the people reading, some people don't like it to be too heavy, you know, so I'm trying to use a lot more metaphor and that kind of thing. So it's not all just the way they sound, but the idioms of the place and the way they speak and the way they see things. And so yeah, it's a little easier. Like right now, my story I'm writing now, I have a guy from Wheaton, Illinois, come into Tennessee. And so the gal's been born and raised, but the guy is not. And he's a productivity consultant. Like he's in one of those really straight laced kind of, so it's easier for me to write him, you know, because I don't have to worry about the accent. And then with her, I gotta, so.
Well, if you ever need any help, just, you know,
well, you know, I just may do that because I could just use a little, maybe you could read over one of my chapters and tell me where I need to sprinkle some more y'alls or something.
Well, you know, in my books, my animals all have names like Doofus and Poochie and Stinky, you know, Stinky Boy and all that stuff because, you know, down here we'll name our pets anything. It don't matter.
How funny. That's funny.
And we pretty much call our kids anything too. So, you know, you know.
Well, you hear some pretty crazy nicknames.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about. We'll lay a nickname on anybody. You know, my nickname as a kid was Gaba. Don't ask me, I don't know, but that's what my brothers call me. So, yeah, nicknames are just a part of our culture, but it makes it fun.
Well, we have a lot. We have met at least 2 Bubbas, and we think they're kidding. It's like, They're not.
No, no. You know, Pinky, my youngest granddaughter, she tries to say brother, and she calls her big brother Bubba. She can't say it. And I
Maybe
was like,
that's where
oh,
it comes from. That
yeah,
would
they
make
can't.
sense.
Yeah,
Yeah, that would
and
make
so they
sense.
become Bubba.
Oh my gosh. So those of you listening, as Casey and I are recording this, it's actually February 9th, but this will not publish for a month. And so her book, the newest book, is called Kids, Smarts and Wistful Hearts. And that's the one when we publish this, it will have just come out. But it'd be nice if you could tell everybody a little bit about that book.
Oh, I would love to. And you know, I told you about my theme, and let me just tell about it a little bit, then I'll get into the theme. There's this nurse practitioner named Esther, and she has loved the same guy since junior high. And you talk about where I get these ideas. And think about back when you were in like the 7th grade, who your first crush was. And can you imagine never getting over that? You know, and I had an aunt who she and her husband, they were, even when they were little in kindergarten, they hung out together, and they got married and lived their whole lives and raised a family and had grandkids and did everything, and it was beautiful. But what if you like this guy all your life and nobody else measured up and he didn't know you existed? So that's kind of where she was at. She's always loved this guy. Well, this guy, he went through he was rough around the edges. He married this girl. He got saved. He had 3 kids. And then with the youngest child, the wife got gestational diabetes with the second one. And then she wasn't supposed to have any more, but she had another one. And she died of renal failure right after the third one was born. And the third one looked like her mama, and he was making her just rotten. Well, they ended up, and she's always had this crush on him, and she's a nurse practitioner, so he's bringing his kids in and everything. And anyway, they ended up on a blind date set up by the oldest boy, who was 9, because he thought his dad needed a woman in his life. So anyway, she has just loved him forever, so she jumps on this. When the little boy, she just kind of like, yes. And the guy is polite and nice, but he accepts her and says okay, and comes. And so they start getting along and all this kind of stuff. But eventually she just is like, I love you and all this. And he's like, whoa, we got to back up. And so then when they do start dating, she thinks, it's going to be great. We're going to get married. We're going to have kids. And he's like, I can do a lot of things, but we can't have any more kids, because he is petrified now that he's having feelings for her. He's scared of losing her, but he's not real good with words. And he's just like, So anyway, he breaks up with her. Well, it just crushes her, because the man she has loved as long as she can remember has rejected her. But during that time, and this was my theme from it, she realizes that she has put a man in the place of where Jesus is supposed to be. That she has basically made him her all in all and everything to her. And she was willing to do anything for him. I mean, like she was giving up her want for children and everything. And so while he broke up with her, she come to realize, you know what? I can't be that way. And if that's what it takes to have him, I can't. And so, of course, he comes around, and then he has to kind of work to get her back, because she's like, there's only one man in my life who will be in that position, and he walked on water. And it's not you. And so, he has to prove himself. And I think it turned out pretty good.
Oh, nice. It sounds like a great book. Do your books have, do you have the dual characters voices?
Yes.
I love that. That's all mine are like that too. I love having more than one voice. I think it makes it so much richer, and you can see the other side of it. And it's even a bigger faith story, because you have both sides. They're each probably dealing with their own faith.
Yeah, because he had to learn to trust, because he had
Right.
to, I don't know when anybody's going to die. I have to trust that the Lord's going to take care of that. If this is what he wants for me, I have to step out on faith. So yeah, it
Awesome.
Definitely does.
Oh, sounds good. I can't wait to read that one. I still am just blown away by all the different ones. Now, here's something I just saw on our we have a mutual friend, Heidi Gray McGill, and I saw on the Facebook page that you won the 2022 Southern Christian Writers Conference Book Award.
Yeah, for the ebook. Yeah, that was in this series. That was the second one. That was Business Smarts and Restless Hearts.
Well,
And that one,
I thought it was Book Smarts and Reckless Hearts.
Business Smarts and Reckless Hearts.
Huh, I wrote it down wrong. Okay. I
Yeah,
thought, you know what? I took it right from the thing, so maybe it was wrong on the thing because I didn't
maybe
take it from the
so. I'll
website.
have to go look. I don't know. I come up with all these long, great titles, and they're okay for the first and second book. But after about the fifth book, you're like, oh my God, what am I going to do now?
Yeah,
One day I'll learn.
I could write the whole book and the title. That is the hardest thing for me. I would
Oh,
rather
yeah.
write the book than the title. I really
I'm the same.
despise
Yes.
titles. Oh, oh.
I'm the same way. Oh my goodness.
So I
But
know.
yeah, and that one, the girl, her grandmother was raising her and her two siblings, and her grandmother had Alzheimer's and got put in the Alzheimer's unit and was dying and was on hospice. And so she had to drop out of college, and she had an accounting degree, and she was just real bitter. And plus she was a little pride and prejudice like toward rich people. She has a little problems dealing with the haves and the have-nots. And this rich guy accidentally made her lose her job, and so he offered her another job, but the job he offered her was to be his maid. And of course she was just thought she was above that because she was going to be an accountant, and she thought he was going to bring her into work in his office, but he offered her his job as maid. But she was desperate, so she took the job there. And I won't go into all of it, but the theme with that one was he kept showing up and meeting her needs even when she was his enemy. And she finally realized, you're doing the exact same thing that Christ did. While I was his enemy, he died for me.
Right.
And he kept showing up even when she didn't even want him, even though she needed him and didn't know it, he kept showing up. And so that was the spiritual theme behind that one. So
Wow, sounds good. They all sound good. And so that one, you said that the Kids Smarts and Wistful Hearts, is that number 5?
That's number 5. That's number 5 on Amazon. There's one more, Music Smarts and Humble Hearts. That's the giveaway in my newsletter. And girl, that was the hardest one to write because the main character, she is an extreme introvert, almost to the point of being lightly autistic. And you talking about out of my comfort zone, writing about somebody that don't like to talk to people and is an introvert. That is so not me. And plus, I'm a heavy dialogue writer. I love dialogue. And so, when you got somebody that all they're going to do is go, yes, no, it really makes it difficult to write that book.
I'll bet it does.
I have had so many people, though, that have gotten that book say, she's my favorite one. I connected with her. She makes sense to me, because, yeah. So
well, the minute we get off this interview, I'm going to hop onto your website and I'm going to get your newsletter so I can get that book. And that's anybody else listening to this, you'd be smart to do the same thing. Be able to have a book like that just for signing up for a newsletter. That's awesome. And then, so I wanted to ask you, I had a question in mind and it just flitted away from me. So one of the things I noticed, and I don't know if it was all your books, but a couple of them you mentioned, like the Nurse Practitioner and even your Cozy Mysteries when she was a nurse in that. So your nursing background must really help you a lot.
It really, I didn't even realize it at first, but it does, especially in the mysteries, it really did. And then, like the one I'm writing right now, one of the guys is an alcoholic. And so, just stuff that I don't even realize I think about, but like he's going through detox and I'm like, okay, that'll be this, that, and you have to do that, and you have to stay in the hospital. So it does. It does. Yeah.
Because otherwise, I think one of the things that slows me down is I have to spend so much time doing research.
Oh, yeah.
Even when it's the simplest thing, I've got this whole idea, but it has to be plausible. So the legal ramifications? It's like John Grisham with a legal background, jumping in and writing all these legal thrillers. It makes it a whole lot easier. Who's going to really want to read about, teacher stuff? Because that's all I knew, is being a teacher for years, and that's changed. So that's not really a compelling background for one of the characters. You can do it once or twice, but you certainly can't do it all the time.
Yeah. Well, my hero in Kid Smarts, bless his heart, he worked on construction, but when his wife died, he come home and started working at the local hardware store and being a handyman on the side so he could be home for his kids. And he was really struggling to make ends meet. But yeah, you have to come up with all these jobs. But I don't want the billionaire romances and all that are great. I like them, and a couple of my Carson's Bayou guys are wealthy. But I also want to have it where it's very relatable, where am I going to get money to buy the new hot water heater? What am I going to do? Because that's the kind, even that can put you in a problem, somebody else's problem is not a big problem, but if it's your problem, it's a big problem, And so, that's kind of how I look at it with them.
It makes it compelling, and you want your people to completely connect. And I know that, like when I wrote the last book of my first series, it was inspired by my brother's suicide, and he was a Christian, committed suicide and leaving a wife and these 3 little kids. So it was based on that. So the things you think about when you're used to having a man around, the things that simple as changing the battery in your smoke alarm. And all of a sudden now it becomes this big ordeal because you've never had, I had that happen to me. I got stuck having to change a smoke alarm on a 15-foot ceiling at the top of it. And it was a nightmare. You're all these little things that you take for granted that the guy will do because it's his job. When you've never done it before, it's a hard thing. So
it is so funny you mentioned smoke alarms. In A Christmas Blaze, the reason they met is because her husband had died. He was overseas in the army and he died. And they had a little boy, a 5-year-old boy. She was a widower. And he went to the fire station to with the kindergartners. And when they were in there, he was talking about, stop, drop, and roll and the fire alarms. And Frank, who was the little boy, he raised his hand and he said, well, my mama go to jail because we don't change our fire alarms. I can't think of the word anyway.
Battery.
He said, yeah, will she go to jail for that? And he's like, no. He goes, well, would you come over and change them? And the woman was in the background going, hush, Frank, hush, Frank, hush, Frank, And that's
how they got together.
Yeah, it was changing the smoke alarm. That's the word. Changing the smoke alarms in her apartment. The little boy wrangled the fireman over. So.
And then now you have a fireman, and you need to know enough about that line of work as well. So that's because I like it to be realistic, and I like it to be unique, that you have something maybe somebody else hasn't done before.
Oh yeah, I have called so many places and be like, I know this is going to sound crazy, but I just need you to answer a few questions for me. Nothing in particular about anyone, but just what would you do in this situation? Oh gosh. And I have Googled working on oil rigs, Googled working all kinds of crazy stuff, and my husband, he's so sweet. He never knows. Like, right before we go to bed, I might ask him, what's a quick way to flood your house that would cost a lot of money that's realistic? Just dumb stuff out the top, and he's learned. He just rattles it off and said, well, you can do this, 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 or this. You'll just have to look up one of those.
Well, and you got to be careful if you're doing murder mysteries, and you start putting a bunch of stuff on Google. I've looked up all kinds of weird stuff. I can imagine if they came and looked at my history.
Oh gosh, I have poisoned people. I have strangled people.
That's what I'm talking about. You better hope that your husband doesn't end up poisoned and they're going to come looking at you and see what you've been doing.
Yeah, I'd be a goner.
That's funny. I remember the first time I went into a real big writers conference, my very first time ever. And I wouldn't have even said I was a writer then. And you walk through the dining hall where everybody is, and the conversations are hysterical because they're all talking about book plots, and these, this person is dead or this person has this. And it's a very surreal thing. I could imagine a non-writer stepping into that world and thinking, boy, these people are nuts. Because we kind of come across that way.
Yeah, because those characters are always in your head until you write them out. I don't know about you, but if I don't write them out, they just keep getting louder. So I have to write them out. It's like expunging them from me. Then I can move on.
You write fast enough that you can do that. I do find if I wake up in the middle of the night, I'm thinking about my characters. I'm thinking about the
Mhm.
plot line. I'm thinking about, and you know what? The Holy Spirit, I was just telling, I was struggling. I had a plot line in mind, but I wasn't sure how it was going to work out. And I've been praying about it, and I've been, just resting in it and waiting. The Holy Spirit never talks to me in the middle of the day. It's always at 1 o'clock in the morning. What is up
Really?
with that? So I'm 1 o'clock in the
He
morning. I'm
wants
ready
to
to get
eat
up.
and steal so you can know that he's gone.
Well, that's probably it. My mind is going a mile a minute. I'm not paying any attention. So he's got to wait till I fall asleep before he can get my attention. But
Yeah.
that's where I usually get one of my critique partners, a writer friend of mine. She gets all of her ideas. She hears the Lord in the shower of all places.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, wherever I think you finally can quiet your mind long enough to hear it, I think is
Yeah.
what it is. So,
Yeah.
wow. So what else can we cover here? We still have some time here.
I wanted to talk about, this is just my impression of being evangelistic as a Christian writer. I think that there's there's a need for good nonfiction Christian stuff. I mean, you need good devotionals and you need good Bible studies. But what really got me thinking about this was, I remember when Star Wars came out in the 70s, like 77, 70, whatever. I was a kid.
Right.
And at that time, I did not know what humanism was. I did not know what any of that was, but I have grown up and grown old in that age of Star Wars and Star Trek and all that fiction. And now the humanistic mindset is everywhere, where we are our own God, and we are all we control our own destiny and all this kind of stuff. And I don't ever remember taking any kind of class through college, through high school, or anything on that, but I learned it through fiction.
Right.
And fiction is a powerful tool. It's almost like nonfiction goes in the front door and gets you, but fiction goes in the back door and gets you. And you take
Absolutely.
all these things that you don't even know you're taking on through fiction. And it is so important as Christian writers to be diligent in our goal of putting good Christian content out there for the people to read. I tell people, they ask, well, how can you write every day? And I tell them, my husband has been a pastor for well over 20 years. And I never remember him ever saying, you know what, I'm not going to go study and get that sermon together. I just don't feel like it. It
Right.
don't matter. He's got a fever of 102. He can't do anything else, but he's going to be back there studying and getting that sermon ready. And I'm not saying what I do is on that level, but I do believe that we should do, whatever the Lord has called us to do. If we're faithful in those little things, he's going to reward it. And so there are people that are not going to read their Bible every day. There are people that are never going to open a devotional book, but they might read a little romance book. And, that might make them question a few things, and then plant a little seed where the next person can come along and water it. And so I just believe that Christian fiction is a huge tool that we can use. Christian fiction, Christian music, all of those things are tools that we can use in our world to be the salt and light for the Savior.
And thinking about it with the fiction part of it, when characters are relatable, when somebody is reading about a character and they can put themselves in that character's place, and then they get these spiritual truths that are coming through them and what they learn, forgiveness or of understanding the sovereignty of God and accepting the hard things in life and knowing that there's a purpose bigger than them. I think it's so much easier for them to grab onto that. And,
right.
I love reading a lot of nonfiction, but I love reading really good biblical fiction. And in biblical times, but fiction that relates to the Bible.
Right.
I don't find there is a whole lot that's in that kind of a depth.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm not reading the right books, but we really need more of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I see more Christian fiction. I know there's Christian suspense and stuff like that, but I see a lot more Christian themed stuff in historical than I do in contemporary, but I'm like you, I might not have found the right books yet.
Right.
We haven't outgrown our Christianity in 2023, so there should be some contemporary Christian stuff to read
Absolutely.
that's
Well, you kind of
relatable.
think maybe people back in the, at the Civil War during those times, the Bible, the Christian worldview was really prevalent. And here we're fighting for it. We're
Yeah.
struggling to keep a Christian worldview in a time and a place where people have turned their backs on the Lord. So I agree.
Yeah.
I think contemporary, having some really good contemporary, in-depth Christian stories are critical.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so.
People have told me that I'm kind of like a Grace Livingston Hill for this time, except I think mine go a little deeper as far as the Christianity part of it than that. But I took that as a very nice compliment. I loved reading Grace Livingston Hill as a kid.
Well, obviously you're having an impact. You've won some awards, but you're writing stuff on the, to be able to write like you do and have all these different stories in your mind, that's God.
And oh, definitely.
Awesome.
Yeah, because I am not I'm not competitive. I do not have a competitive bone in my body. The reason I've done that award was because I took this class and it said that if you win an award that reflects sort of who you are, it will give you credibility among people who haven't read your books. So you could have knocked me over when I won that thing. I was just like, I was clueless. So yeah, I don't cry, but I almost teared up that day.
Yeah, I've won one award myself and it was like unbelievable when it happens.
Yeah.
It's like, wow. Yeah, it's pretty exciting. So it has been awesome talking to you today, Casey. And I hope maybe the next time, I don't think I can keep up with your books, but maybe the next book, big book you have, you come back on and let's talk about it again and see if we can get some more noise for it. So
okay, that'd be great. I'm finishing out this series and then I'm starting a series and I believe it's going to be in the town of Red Goat, Alabama. So
Red Goat.
Red Goat. Don't that sound like a nice town?
You made sure there's not a red goat somewhere, right?
Yeah.
You have a better chance than Skeeterville.
It's
a fictional. Well, that's great. So it's been so fun talking to you, and I really appreciate you coming on. And I hope you have the best blessings with your books and reaching the people with the word of Christ.
Well, thank you, Jennifer, and thank you for having me. This is one of my favorite things, talking and face to face. I love this. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome. I appreciate it. And for those of you out there, I hope you will go and check out Casey's her website, get her book, pay attention. And I'm going to put it in the show notes, so there's no excuse. You'll have everything you need when we publish this. So God bless and thank you.
Thank you.